Back to the daily grind. The channel's getting false flagged by triggered trolls, so make sure you subscribe to the new channel. Let's get to the MMA news. Tyron Woodley's got a message for George St. Pierre. Oh, Lord, hey, I'm telling you, I told you guys, I'm a fan of Tyron Woodley, the fighter. I am not a fan of this motherfucking complaining stuff that's been going on and this threatening to leak stuff and demanding public apologies. I don't like this. And this goes on for some more shit that I don't like right here. Tyron Woodley's coming out and he's fucking leaking why George St. Pierre's really back in the UFC. Low-key, it's like, all right, Tyron, okay, this is really the last thing I want to hear about Tyron and GSP, man. Bisping's got the fight. It's scheduled. It's over. It's done. Move on. Talk about your next opponent, please. Don't whine about GSP. That's all I got to say, because I just am not, like I said, I love Tyron Woodley as a fighter, as a human being, as far as a father, a husband. Well, Kobe Covington might change that, though. To me, he represents a good role model, a good father, you know, a husband. He's a God-fearing man. If I had a son training MMA or something, you know, a nephew, I wouldn't mind them watching Tyron Woodley, you know, at his champ camps and all that shit. He's a cool dude. Now, when Kobe Covington comes out and drops bombs, that might change. I might just only watch his fights. And, hey, it's a package deal for me with Tyron Woodley. Why I like him so much, okay? He's a good role model, and he's one of the best. Well, he is the best welterweight currently in the UFC welterweight champion, and he does get a lot of hate, even though he's one of the best fighters of all time. So it could be, you can't tell me it's all because the whining, because yeah, he gets to whining sometimes, and it gets annoying, but it can't make you hate a dude that much. Come on, dude. Come on, dude. Well, it doesn't me at least. So this is what he had to say to George St. Pierre, man, and it's like, to me, he's damn near beating a dead horse. I think it's something we all know, but I guess he thought we all didn't. So listen to what he had to say on this podcast, These Nuts with Morning Wood or something. That's one thing, man, one of my opinions about his podcast, man. Whenever I was just working and didn't have to put out all this content, I haven't been listening to many podcasts since I've been having to do all this motherfucking content myself. So I ain't even had time to listen to no podcasts. I ain't been able to listen to Joey Diaz, none of my shit, unfiltered, nothing. I ain't been able to listen to nothing, but it's all good because it's all good. So, Tyron Woodley, he's coming out on this podcast, and I was about to say what my critique of his podcast. It's called the Morning Wood Show with These Nuts. I don't know, man. I don't know. I just don't agree with the name. It's just a little hard to, even whenever I'm like, man, what's Tyron Woodley's podcast name? I can't think of it. And it's like, it just seems a little weird. So it's all good. But I mean, this is what he said on his podcast to George St. Pierre. I knew what he was coming back for. He said, I knew he wasn't coming back to do another run and what he already has done. And do what he already has done. He already had a name engraved on the record books. He's coming back because he said, hey, you know what? John Jones, Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, all these fighters are making all this money, so I want to get in on some of this money. What George St. Pierre needs to do is just be honest. You're not back in this sport to take on the welterweights. Prove that you're back and the king is back. You're not back for that, man. You're here for super fights. You're here to make a lot of money because you helped build this business model for pay-per-view, and there's no shame in that. Just be real. You know what? Tyron Woodley just put me more on George St. Pierre's side with this baby back bullshit. He's literally just came out with some corny shit right here, man. He said, I knew what he was coming back for. Well, if you knew, why have you been fucking talking about this George St. Pierre fight? If you knew, how come in the octagon after your Damian Maia fight, you called out GSP for Madison Square Garden if you knew what he was coming back for? You clearly didn't know, or you wouldn't be this salty about George St. Pierre versus Michael Bisping. What do you mean you knew? How long did you really know? And then on top of that, he said George St. Pierre helped build the sport into a pay-per-view model. Dude, I wasn't even really thinking about that, even though that's so true. You just made me 100% A-okay with George St. Pierre not fighting the welterweight champion. Because you know why? The fans don't want to see the current welterweight champion fight. You know, and that's just the truth. The fans would fuck around and get mad at George St. Pierre. You know how, dude, there's so many fans that would rather see Michael Bisping versus George St. Pierre than Michael Bisping versus Tyron Woodley. It's not even close. I mean, that's just my opinion. I know personally, I think Michael Bisping versus GSP is a bigger fight. Yeah, it would be cool if Tyron Woodley fought GSP, but I would honestly rather see Michael Bisping versus George St. Pierre at this point. Now, if I thought, and that's just because of what Tyron Woodley said, if I thought that George St. Pierre was coming back and he just wanted to be a dominant champion again, he was coming back to the sport, then yes, I would rather see him fight the welterweight champion. But if he's coming back for money fights, for super fights, to get what's his, as Tyron Woodley says, to make the money off of the sport that he sees is now being made, and he helped build this sport to where it's at today, because George St. Pierre, before Conor McGregor, before Ronda Rousey, before John Jones, was carrying this sport on his back with some of the other guys, Anderson Silva's and the guys before them. So George St. Pierre, while he still can, if he was 45, wouldn't have this opportunity to come and collect on some of his success, what he helped the UFC become. But now, if you've been listening, you know I haven't been using that argument because I haven't been thinking about it. Tyron Woodley just made George St. Pierre's case for me. Like he just said, George St. Pierre's just coming back to get some of the money he feels like he helped build this sport into. And there's nothing wrong with that, because that's true. When George St. Pierre retired, he might have never had, he probably didn't get $1 million purse ever. I mean, I don't know if that's the case, but it definitely wasn't Conor McGregor type shit. And he was the damn near the Conor McGregor of the sport back in the day. He didn't talk as much shit, but when you came down to stars, before these huge crossover stars, George St. Pierre was that crossover star. So George St. Pierre, like Tyron Woodley says, he's here for super fights. He's here to make a lot of money. He's here because he helped build this business model for pay-per-view, and there's no shame in that. There's no shame in that. Tyron just made George St. Pierre's case. I'm not gonna go keep. Tyron Woodley's just fucking up, man. He's just fucking up. He's just talking, and he's not making that. That's one thing about whining, man. Eventually, you contradict yourself, and it all just counters it all out, and you just did a bunch of whining for nothing. At one point in time, you're calling George St. Pierre out and saying and alluding to the fact that he's ducking you, that he doesn't want a concussion and all this shit, and that's why he doesn't want to fight you. And now you're coming out and saying he doesn't want to fight you because he wants to make a lot of money, because he wants super fights, because he helped build this business. So now you done did all this motherfucking complaining, and you contradicted yourself. That's the problem with complaining. And growing up, you know, as a kid, a teenager, you know, I grew up around a bunch of complainers. I used to complain a lot. But eventually I realized, man, this shit's got to give. Something's got to give. This shit ain't cool, man. I stopped complaining a little bit ago, and my life's much better, man. Life's much better when you don't complain and you just motherfucking shut the fuck up and get to work. And it's that simple. Imagine if Tyron Woodley hadn't never had none of this complaining streak, and all he ever did was say, you know what, I'm not worried about George St. Pierre unless he wants some of me. Like Max Holloway's doing with Conor McGregor. Hey, I'm not mentioning Conor McGregor, and if he wants to fight me, he can come see me. But I'm not worried about that dude. What if Tyron said that about Conor and GSP? Hey, I'm not worried about them dudes. If them dudes really want smoke, I'll be here, and they can get the fight. But right now, I'm worried about any welterweight that wants this action. If anybody wants me for a super fight, I'm down. I'll move up, I'll move down. Other than that, I'm defending this belt. Let's get to it. Boom. All these people that are mad at Tyron Woodley for complaining and threatening to leak shit, they'd be fans, because he's just a dominant champion that goes in there and whoops ass and don't complain and whine. They would be fans of Tyron Woodley. What if he was just like, hey, I want the winner of Robbie and Jorge. They're in my division. I want them. I want one of them. Me and Jorge used to be teammates, but I know he wants this title shot, and I'll give him the opportunity. Boom. Let's go. But no, it's got to be all this contradicting yourself and complaining in the media. So, like I said, I respect Tyron, the man, the father, and the fighter. But the complainer, that's just the side I don't rock with too much. But I mean, it's not enough to turn me all the way away like some of you guys who fucking hate his guts. I don't hate his guts. I just don't like this shit right here. So it is what it is. Let the haters know what the fuck you think about Tyron Woodley coming out and giving George St. Pierre a valid excuse for taking the Bisping fight. Because everything he said, I'm fine with. So it is what it is. Hit subscribe to the new channel, because this bitch is getting false flagged. It could get shut down after any video. This motherfucker might get shut down while this bitch is uploading, because we got 2 strikes and the third one, and we are done. We already got 180, 190 people on the new channel. There's 600 on here, so you motherfuckers better get to the Titanic while you can, while there's still a few lifeboats, because the last lifeboats are sinking. I'm sure this pussy done false flagged at least 5, 10, 20 more videos, and YouTube's just going through their appeal process. So we'll see what it is, man. It would literally be a miracle blessing if this channel made it to the appeal process, to the other false flags. If I could get them 2 copyright strikes lifted before this shit got shut down, that would be insane. That would be like riding a unicorn to the end of a rainbow. So, follow the new channel. I'm out. I done said it enough, and I'm probably going to keep saying it on the next videos. God said to John, "Come forth, and you shall be granted eternal life." But John came fifth and won a toaster.